Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ray Tampa podcast. Our podcast is new, our podcast is bold, and political correctness is out the door. We will tell it like it is. We have in the studio with us today my talented and very intelligent co-hosts, Mr. Jamie Wilson and Mr. Russell Cato. What we're going to do is I'm going to read an article that I wrote, and my co-host and I are going to engage in a very lively discussion following the reading of the article. The title of the article is "Extremism is Nothing New in Our Country." No, not at all. The extremists are bolder, more mainstream, and power hungry. Here's the article. The United States history is littered with periods of extremism of a racial nature, economic nature, political nature, and social nature. We can look at the periods in our country prior to the Civil War, during the Civil War, and after the Civil War, and find extremist behaviors in all sectors of our society. Obviously, the system of slavery in and of itself was extreme. This system, as you all know, allowed the so-called, quote, masters to own human beings and force them to work in order to keep their economic systems and lifestyles afloat. Also, these master assholes brutally whipped or beat their slaves at will in an effort to maintain control of their, quote, property. They raped the girls and women without any consequences. They murdered slaves at will. They separated families by selling or bartering human lives. All of this is extreme. During the Civil War, much of what was described above continued until the war ended in 1865. After the Civil War concluded, the former masters devised a new system to control the newly freed slaves and to maintain some degree of semblance to their lifestyles. They developed extreme systems to deny the former slaves their full participation in the political, economic, and social processes. They allow for the development and involvement of the KKK. This group was intended to strike fear in people through intimidation and violence. Extremist behaviors. The extremists burned down 2 highly successful Black towns and many others, and killed many of the residents without consequences. They even bombed a church and killed a group of little girls. They savagely killed a 14-year-old boy who was falsely accused of whistling at a white woman. They used police dogs, water hydrant hoses, billy clubs, and horses to harass and abuse peaceful protesters. Extremist behaviors. The extremists today cater to a phony movement known as Make America Great Again, MAGA. This piece of shit movement can't even define the period of our history that they're referencing. I repeat, this piece of shit movement can't even define the period of our history that they're referencing. Besides, these extremists are these extremists are led by an overweight Slav who is widely recognized as a racist, serial liar, con man, bully, grifter, tax cheat, sexual abuser, alleged thief of top secret documents, and a twice impeached former president with the most scandalous administration ever. In short, he's a pathetic loser. The extremists don't care that their leader is despicable, despised, and deserving of a lengthy prison sentence. They truly don't care about his serious character flaws. All that matters to them is, can he lead us back to power? The Republican Party of the Bushes, the Reagans, the Fords, and the Cheneys is no more. Today's extremists don't care. They don't care about being called racist, sexist, anti-gays, anti-public schools, anti-freedom of speech proponents, anti-women's choice, anti-immigrationists, and more. They were told to wear these names as a badge of honor by Steve Bannon, former Trump advisor. What matters to these lunatics is power, plain and simple. From their perspective, we can call them anything we want as long as they're in positions of power. This is why they're willing to destroy our democracy if that's what it takes for them to gain power. They seem to prefer fascism, authoritarianism, or even a dictatorship, as long as their people are in charge. Please, 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 my fellow voters, let's drive this extremist or these extremists from our midst by denying them the power they so desperately crave. Cast your ballots responsibly on November 8th, 2022 and beyond. Thank you. So at this point, I'm going to ask my co-host to let's tackle the subject of extremism in our country. Jay, what you have? Oh boy, I like that.
I feel since 911, when that happened in New York, that opened the door for them to really show themselves. First, it started with the Arabs. You know, some say, oh, it was out of fear, but the issue is that it was a lot of deaths. It was a lot of deaths, a lot of mistreatment of Arabs due to that, which it allowed them to come out and start really acting out. And unfortunately, our government, our law officials were a little slow to prosecute, you know, because everybody was all sad about what happened, which it was devastating. And that kept the trend going. But they began to grow and grow, although it's always been here, to begin to grow and grow. And then someone like Trump just opened the gates, the floodgates, and they just rushed. So it's been here. They just didn't have a voice. Trump is their voice. Trump is their voice, and they're in power. And it's a lot of things that's been going on that hasn't made the news, which you're probably going to talk about. We're all going to talk about, but it's just out of hand right now. It's out of hand, and I hate when we sound like victims, although we are, and a lot of the victims are the ones that they get people that I won't say won't fight back. They hit churches, they hit schools, they hit places like that. You know, it almost is like preying on kids or old people, because the church is filled with old people. Most young people don't go until they get old and think they're going to die. That's when they join the church. So it's just out of hand, but they pick the victims and it's planned.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Russ?
I think if you go back and look at the year 2009, I think that's the time when Obama was being elected, somewhere around there. I think it was, I'm not too sure. I think that's where the white people quote, got scared because what they saw, here is a black man is going to become leader of the United States of America. That was not in their plans, nowhere in their plans. So extremism started taking shape right away.
Mhm.
Go back to the Oath Keepers, 2009. That's when they established themselves because they saw the plight of Obama. And if you go back and look at when he became president, they were trying to deny him that he was not even a citizen of the United States.
Well, mainly that was Trump, but he had his
Yeah.
followers who were in the Oath Keepers.
Yeah, all the same. So when you look at the word extremist, I want to be very careful here because it depends who's in power that you can deal with extremists being good or bad. For instance, I remember when Martin Luther King was arrested in Birmingham, Alabama, fighting the civil rights movement. They called him an extremist. Even with the teaching of Christianity with Jesus Christ, he was an extremist. So I say to people who look at the word extremist, you have to be very careful how to use it, because in some cases it can be good or it can be bad. And it depends on who is controlling, you know what I'm saying, James, who is controlling this word extremist.
Right.
Well, when I read the article, I gave examples of time periods where extremism was highly visible
Yes,
in terms of certain behaviors exhibited by the extremists.
yes,
I want to say that the same pattern is in existence today
oh yes,
that existed years ago,
Sure.
because they were attempting to influence the political processes
yes.
by using violence and intimidation way back when,
Mhm.
way back when. And they're doing the same thing now.
Right. Thank you.
Violence and intimidation.
Mhm.
And today they're just adding a few more components
Yes,
of their schemes,
true.
such as inflicting fear in the political elections offices,
Mhm.
where you got people resigning because they're being threatened,
Mhm.
and they're nothing but poll workers. Why are they threatening poll workers? Well, they're adding their different components in order to get what they want, which is power.
Right,
Power.
right.
I indicated in my article that there were two highly successful townships that were burned
Mhm.
down,
Mhm.
people killed by racist mobs.
Mhm.
And I did some research and found that there were about 27 other
Mhm.
27 other towns
Mhm.
that were burned down, people killed
Mhm.
by racist mobs. And they were all, for the most part, associated with the effort to control elections,
True.
strike fear in the people that they didn't want to vote, to
Right.
participate in the process.
Right.
And again, they're trying to do the same thing. You got this stupid ass president we used to have talking about if he's indicted, we're going to have big problems. Problems that's never seen before.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Indict him.
Yeah.
Not only indict him, arrest him, put him in handcuffs. And not only just put him in handcuffs, throw his ass in jail. Don't just let him walk in the cell. Push him down in the cell.
You know what, Ray, and you're so right. The thing I can understand with this indictment shit is, look at what he has done with Mar-a-Lago. Just look at that point. Don't look at nothing else. He had no right to take those documents, period.
Mhm.
Period. There is no executive rights there for him or whatever you want to say. But some kind of way I get scared because this nation is kind of bending towards him. And this thing frightened me, Ray.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
this man is wrong, Ray. I don't care how you look at it. He is wrong as hell.
Mhm.
And if they don't indict this man, this is going to be a sad day in America. And I'm going to say it again. America is sick.
They need to make an
That's sick.
example. They need to make an example out of him
Yes.
so that no one else does it. I mean,
Yes.
next it'll be a senator doing it or somebody else. I mean, they need to make an example out of him. And they're slow to do it.
They're slow.
And that's why he wanted that master's, as I
That's
said,
right.
to buy him time.
True.
That's why. But it's gonna, unfortunately, I'm thinking with all the documents, as I said before, they're gonna need more than one master to do it though.
Yeah.
It's a lot of documents. And if one person is doing it, I mean, he's probably gonna have his assistants, but I'm saying if it's just one master's doing it, this thing could go on for a year or two.
That's what I'm saying. If you look at,
or
if I'm not mistaken, the judge was Cannon, that's her name, a protege of Trump, as I'm concerned.
Mhm.
And if you look at what she did, every lawmaker was surprised that she issued that kind of that kind of stuff. They were saying, "What the hell is this? This has never been done before." You know this.
Yeah.
But here again, I go back to what Jamie's saying. I get scared because this man know how to delay shit.
Right.
You know.
Well, he indicated recently that even if he's indicted, he's going to run for president,
That's just arrogance. It's stupid.
which is he can do that
Mhm.
because he can't be denied until he's convicted.
Right,
An indictment is not a
Right.
conviction.
right.
So he made it clear,
Right.
even if I'm indicted, I'm still going to run for president.
True.
By running for president, then he can try and push back on the legal process against him.
Mhm. It changes.
He's using
The
and
president.
abusing the system,
Yes, he is.
As always.
as always.
Yeah, because he's a he wants to be a dictator. Even not being the president, he still think he's a dictator.
Yeah.
We're talking about extremists, and it is, in my research, it's a bunch, it's a couple of groups. It's, we just think it was just the white ring of the right wing. I was reading this author, Sam Jackson.
Uh-huh.
He says different categories. You got the male supremacy, which were
True.
very influential in overturning the Roe versus Wade, the racists,
Mhm.
right wing extreme. And then you got the anti-federalism extremists, which is anti-government, like that Waco thing. And then I think they all overlap, but the Christian identity extremists, what we talk about all the time, Project Blitz and all that other stuff. So it's different groups and they kind of all overlap, but they're growing in power, and it is scary because they strategically pick groups that they think are not going to fight back. Like if you're waiting to vote in a at line, you're not prepared. You're just there. If you're at church, you're not prepared. Your kids are at school and and you get the Tucker Carsons and all these people. They incite these young people. These young people are doing the shooting. They incite this stuff, and they just come out and like, you're doing this for your race. You know what I mean? It's getting crazy. So we need to keep our head on the swivel. All black and brown people.
And certainly I agree with both of you in terms of what you've said on all points. But I tell you that, yes, it is this group, it is that group, it is this group, it is that group, and they do overlap. But the main focus of them all is to suppress the vote of the minorities.
Of course.
And to allow the racist extremists to gain political power. No matter which group we're talking about, that's what it's all about for them. The Federalist Society, those right-wing proponents of the judicial appointments, that Federalist Society, I think they should be also called a terrorist organization.
Yes.
They're responsible for 5 of the 9 judges on our Supreme Court. And they're responsible for a lot of the district court judges in our country. And this asshole Cannon, the one that has given Donald Trump all of these benefits of judicial decision-making that doesn't make sense. She's a Federalist Society judge. So we need to understand that.
You know what, Ray, when you look at the federal government and we look at democracy, and I believe that anyone who thinks that the federal government is a conspiracy trying to take away the rights of citizens, something is wrong there, if you believe that. And I think this is where these right-wing guys go with this. They believe that it is conspiracy in the Constitution. And that Constitution is trying to take away your rights and your freedom to live in America.
Right.
They preach that kind of shit. And I think these bastards hang on to this kind of shit. That's what makes me so angry with them, with this teaching.
Right.
It's weird.
Yeah, we were never included in the Constitution. It wasn't about us. We weren't included in the Constitution. That's the problem. And we weren't.
Sure.
I mean, if you got to amend something, that meant you weren't invited to the party from the jump.
Initially, it's understood we weren't included
Right.
because we weren't even considered full
Humans.
full humans, or
Mhm.
we didn't have all our citizens. We didn't have any citizen rights. We were property in the
Right.
beginning.
Still is.
And then they counted us only 3/5 of a human being at one time.
Okay.
But I tell you, the 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment gave us ample opportunity to participate fully in the processes of this country. 13th Amendment freed the slaves. 14th Amendment, Equal Opportunity Amendment. 15th Amendment gave African American men the right to, well, African Americans the right to vote.
Sure.
So those three amendments there were designed to assist the African Americans in this country.
Correct.
Freedom, equal opportunity or equal protection of the law, and their right to vote.
And
But the extremists have circumvented, have skirted those amendments.
Yeah.
Technically, one last thing, technically, those amendments have given the federal government the right to enforce the laws protecting African Americans. But the federal government is slow to do
They're
it.
slow to do it.
yeah, they're
And
slow to do it.
There, in Russ, to what you
Yeah,
were saying,
slow to do
there is fear
It's,
and not trusting the government because they're implanted in the government.
Yes.
These are senators and
yeah.
they're implanted. Congress.gov, I got some information, Congress.gov. On March 27, 2019, they did the Senate introduced a bill to prevent domestic terrorists, and
Mhm.
they authorized the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI to analyze or to monitor the domestic terrorism activity. And they found that white supremacy was the most significant in the
Sure.
US.
It is.
I mean, it's crazy. And then in February 22nd, 2020, the Trump administration, of course, the United States Department of Justice officials, according to the New York Times, said that it basically said that it's been the worst for the last 25 years. And the problem is that state levels has been slow to respond to the killings of individuals
Sure.
by these groups. I mean, they're real slow to it's almost like they just tried to hide it.
Yeah.
You know what? It's like they don't want to publicize it.
Let me say this before we get off the air. Here's what you got to understand with white nationalism. If you look at the three branches of government, executive, Congress, the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
If the president is supposed to enforce the law, take
Mhm.
Trump. And if Congress is supposed to pass the law,
Mm-hmm.
look who control Congress. Then if you get past that, if you go into the Supreme Court, they supposed to interpret it, is it wrong or right? Who controls that?
Hmm.
So see what these boys did, they said a white control the presidency, executive branch, Congress. That's why they fight for Congress now. And that's why they fight for the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
They know the shit. And they fight. That's why if you look at the Supreme Court, who you think control the Supreme Court? These goddamn conservative ass mega
Yeah.
people.
Yes.
It's all about control. And by the way, if you go back and look at the 14th Amendment, there is something in about sedition. I want you to look at that.
Well, I know you're talking
Yeah.
about Section 2 of the
Yeah.
14th Amendment.
Yes, yes.
Section 2 of the
Right.
14th Amendment gives specific authority to
Yes.
remove from office
Yes.
and penalize any person
Yeah.
in Congress
Right.
or any person employed in the federal government.
Yes. Yes.
And it stated in state governments.
Yes.
If they're
Yeah.
participating in insurrectionist behaviors, they are eligible to be punished.
That's right. Lose your pension this
We
year.
had a huge,
Yeah,
we had a huge insurrection.
we had examples of that.
But how many of these people are being punished by the government?
No.
Right,
Oh,
because they have their plans in place
Yeah.
to not vote that way or not identify that. That's the problem. This stuff has been going on for a while quietly.
Yeah.
Trump just kind of magnified it or opened the door for it to happen, and they feel emboldened
Right.
to do it, you know what I mean? To flex, basically.
I go with you. That's why I say if you go back to 209, I think that's where it really started. When they found out that Obama's going to become a president, first black president, they felt that they were going to lose their right in the country as white citizens.
they
And so-
know, they know that they cannot win a fair
No,
election in this
they-
country
they-
again.
They can't.
And I've been saying that they cannot.
They can't.
Hillary had more votes than that piece of shit,
That's right.
Trump.
Mhm,
And that's bothered him too.
And Biden had even more
That's right.
mhm.
votes than Hillary did,
Right.
substantially more.
That's right.
They know what the trend is.
True.
And if it was not for the Electoral College, Trump would not have been president. So
That's right.
they're not going to take chances in it anymore.
Right.
They're trying to steal elections before they even occur.
Exactly. That's what
They're trying to
do.
steal. I want to read one thing here and then we can wrap it up. Colfax, Louisiana, 1873. 1873.
73.
Now, the 13th Amendment was ratified in 1870.
Okay.
But in 1873, this is what was stated about that particular incident, Colfax, Louisiana.
Right.
This was a direct attack on Black men getting the right to vote during Reconstruction.
Yeah.
After whites contested the results of the 1872 election, Black men and mostly Black state militia holed up around the parish courthouse to protect the local government. On Easter Sunday, April 13, 1873, they were surrounded by a white mob that set the courthouse on fire and shot anyone who emerged. It is estimated that 62 to 81 African Americans were killed. Now, that type of mob mentality was rampant. It was rampant. And what was the cause of the rampant mob mentality? Elections.
Yeah.
The means to secure power.
Yes.
They were
Right.
losing it because the African Americans were voting against their wishes.
Exactly.
Right.
Same thing, 1873 throughout the rest of the history.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Because you can change things by voting, and they don't want
Right.
change.
That's what it is.
And
That's what MAGA means.
Yeah, mega. I call them maggots. But I want to say to the two of you, as I always say, thanks a lot for the discussion. I love having these discussions. You all bring to the table interesting points. So to the two of you again, thank you. Thank you. I want to
Thank
thank
you.
our listening audience. Thanks for tuning in to 99.1 FM The Berg.
Yeah.
We ask that you go to the Ray Tampa podcast on YouTube.
Yeah.
And take a look at all of our videos about the very interesting and very relevant subjects that we've discussed. And besides that, you can go to the Weekly Challenger newspaper and take a look at some of the articles that we're submitting to the Weekly Challenger. And if you don't get it from the Challenger 99.1 FM or YouTube, talk to us. We'll be more than happy to share with you. And
people vote, and young people that's listening, learn your history, read. You got the internet, you got Google, read, learn your history. We were powerful and great people and still are.
Thank you.
You got to vote.
Hello.
And Ron DeSantis hates the type of discussions that we just had. Ron DeSantis will probably want to put us in jail for talking about this nonsense that, well, not nonsense to us, but he calls it nonsense with this critical race theory bullshit.
Yeah, see, we the extremists.
Yeah.
Yeah, in their eyes.
But nevertheless, as I said to the listening audience, thanks for tuning in to 99.1 FM The Berg, and we ask that you do so each and every Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. And as Jamie stated last week, we'll state it again, we are taking sponsorships.
Amen.
Yes, amen.
Good evening.
Amen.